had seen all kinds of passengers in her 3 years as a flight attendant. Impatient businessmen, nervous first-time flyers, exhausted parents, and the occasional demanding VIP. She had learned to handle them all with a practiced smile, even when she was exhausted or frustrated. But him? He was different. Emma first noticed him on a flight to New York. An older man, maybe in his late 60s, seated in business class. He wasn't flashy like some of the frequent travelers who carried an air of self-importance. He didn't demand anything. He didn't seem to be in a rush. Emma adjusted her uniform and let out a slow breath. The flight to New York was full, and she already sensed it would be a long one. The air was thick with the usual mix of excitement, impatience, and exhaustion from travelers of all kinds. Businessmen tapping away at laptops, families struggling to settle children, and solo passengers lost in their thoughts. But amid the chaos, there was always him. Emma had noticed him before. An older man, probably in his late 60s, always traveling alone, always seated in business class, and always smiling. She didn't know his name, but his presence was familiar. She had seen him on at least 5 different flights over the past 2 months. While other frequent flyers often showed signs of fatigue, annoyance at delays, frustration over meal choices, or irritation with crying babies, he remained unchanged, his posture relaxed, his eyes warm, and his smile effortless. What was his secret? Emma had been a flight attendant for 3 years, and she had met all kinds of passengers, some kind, some difficult, some lost in their own worlds. But this man intrigued her. What kind of person smiled all the time? Didn't he have bad days? Wasn't he ever irritated by the small inconveniences of travel? She pushed the thought aside as she went about her duties. It wasn't her job to investigate passengers, but today, curiosity gnawed at her. An unusual calm. A few hours into the flight, the cabin had settled. The dinner service was done, and most passengers were either sleeping or watching movies. Emma walked down the aisle, checking on passengers. She reached him. "Everything okay, sir?" she asked with her usual polite tone. His smile deepened. "Absolutely, young lady. Another wonderful flight." Emma hesitated. "I see you travel a lot," she said carefully. He chuckled. "Yes, I suppose I do." "Do you ever get tired of it?" she blurted out before she could stop herself. His eyes twinkled. "Tired? Every journey is an opportunity." An opportunity for what? Before she could ask, a commotion erupted a few rows down. A middle-aged man was angrily demanding a seat change, his voice rising. "I paid for a window seat, and I will have a window seat." Emma sighed and stepped away to handle the situation. When she returned, the old man was still sitting there, watching the scene with a quiet smile. "Sorry about that," she said. "Don't be," he replied. "People have their own struggles." His words stayed with her. A delayed flight, a chance encounter. Upon landing, the captain announced that there was a minor delay in deboarding. Groans echoed through the cabin, but the old man remained unfazed. Emma found herself standing beside him near the exit. "You really don't mind delays?" she asked. He let out a small chuckle. "What would be the point?" She raised an eyebrow. "There are 2 ways to live," he explained. "You can resist what you can't change and be miserable, or you can accept it and find joy in the moment." Emma crossed her arms. Easier said than done. His smile didn't waver. True, but not impossible. Before she could ask more, the doors finally opened. The passengers hurried out, but he took his time. As he walked past her, he said, "Maybe on your next flight we'll talk more." And just like that, he was gone. Emma stood there watching him disappear into the crowd. She had met thousands of passengers, but something about him lingered in her mind long after the flight ended. What was his secret? Emma wasn't the type to dwell on passengers after a flight, but this man was different. His words stayed with her. There are two ways to live. You can resist what you can't change and be miserable, or you can accept it and find joy in the moment. She found herself scanning business class on every flight, wondering if she'd see him again. And then, 2 weeks later, she did. Another New York-bound flight. Another busy day. And there he was, seated in 3A, sipping tea with that same peaceful expression. This time, she wasn't going to let the opportunity slip away. Breaking the ice. Midway through the flight, during a quiet moment, Emma approached his seat. "Tea again, sir?" she asked with a small smile. He chuckled. "Ah, you remember. Yes, please. No sugar." She poured his tea and hesitated. "Do you mind if I sit for a minute, just until someone calls me?" He gestured to the empty seat beside him. "I'd be honored." She sat down, feeling slightly out of place. Flight attendants weren't supposed to chat with passengers for long, but she couldn't ignore her curiosity. "I have to ask," she began. "You travel so much, but I've never seen you upset. Not even a little. How?" He set his cup down. "Because I learned the hard way that every moment matters." Emma tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He exhaled softly, his smile still present, but tinged with something deeper. "I wasn't always like this," he admitted. "I used to be like many people, rushing through life, irritated by small things, constantly waiting for something to go right before I could be happy." Emma nodded. That sounded familiar. "But then, I lost my wife." She inhaled sharply. "I'm so sorry." He nodded. "She was my world. And after she was gone, I realized I had spent too much time worrying about the wrong things, complaining about traffic, getting annoyed at delays, stressing over work. But when I lost her, none of that mattered. The only thing I wished for was more time." Emma swallowed. She had expected a simple philosophy, not something this personal. "So, I made a decision," he continued. "I wouldn't waste another moment being upset over things I couldn't control. I started choosing gratitude. And you know what happened?" She shook her head. "My life changed," he said simply. "Not because circumstances changed, but because I did." The power of perspective. Emma sat in silence, absorbing his words. She thought about her own life, the frustration of long hours, the passengers who tested her patience, the exhaustion of always being on her feet. She had let those things define her experience. She had been waiting for things to be perfect before allowing herself to be happy. But perfection never came. "Every moment we get is a gift," he said. "Even this flight, even delays, even turbulence. It's all a reminder that we're here, that we're alive, that we get to experience life." Emma looked around the cabin. The passengers sleeping, eating, working, the hum of the engines, the soft glow of the overhead lights. She had been on hundreds of flights, but had she ever truly appreciated them? "You're right," she admitted softly. "I've been looking at things the wrong way." He smiled, but this time she understood it better. It wasn't just a polite expression. It was a choice. The call button chimed from another row. Emma stood up. "Thank you for sharing that," she said. "It's my pleasure," he said. "The real joy is in passing it on." A shift in perspective. For the rest of the flight, Emma felt different. She smiled at passengers more genuinely. She took a deep breath instead of sighing when someone asked for an extra blanket. When turbulence hit, instead of feeling tense, she focused on the simple fact that she was experiencing another moment of life. By the time they landed, she felt lighter. As the old man stepped off the plane, he turned to her. "I suspect our paths will cross again." Emma smiled back. "I hope so." And for the first time, her smile wasn't just polite. It was real. Emma didn't expect a single conversation to change her life, but as days turned into weeks, she realized something had shifted inside her. She found herself thinking differently, responding instead of reacting. When a passenger snapped at her over a minor inconvenience, she didn't take it personally. When flights were delayed, she didn't groan. Instead, she took a deep breath and reminded herself, every moment is a gift. And for the first time since she became a flight attendant, she felt like she wasn't just working, she was experiencing life. An unexpected reunion. One evening, Emma was assigned to a last-minute flight to London. As she prepared the cabin, she glanced at the manifest. Her heart skipped. Seat 3A. She didn't need to read the name to know who it was. Minutes later, he boarded, carrying his usual calm energy. "Ah," he said with a knowing smile. "I had a feeling I'd see you again." Emma grinned. "And I have a feeling this isn't a coincidence." He chuckled and took his seat. "Tell me, how has life been treating you?" Emma shook her head. "No, let me ask you, how have I been treating life?" His eyes twinkled. "And?" she exhaled. "Better. Much better." She told him how she had started looking at every flight, every interaction, even the frustrating moments, with a new perspective. How she had stopped letting things she couldn't control steal her joy. His smile deepened. "Ah, now you understand." Paying it forward. Later in the flight, as Emma made her rounds, she noticed a woman in 5B silently wiping away tears. Emma hesitated for a moment, then walked over. "Excuse me, ma'am. Would you like some tea?" The woman looked up, startled. "Oh, no, I'm fine, thank you." But she wasn't fine. Emma could see it. She thought about the old man's words. The real joy is in passing it on. So she sat down. "We still have a long flight ahead," she said gently. "If you need someone to talk to, I'm here." The woman hesitated, then let out a shaky breath. "It's just been a hard week. I lost my job, and I have no idea what comes next." Emma nodded. "That must be really tough." The woman's shoulders slumped. "I just feel like everything is falling apart." Emma thought of herself a month ago. Frustrated, stressed, waiting for things to get better before she could feel happy. And then she thought of 3A. "I don't have all the answers," Emma said, "but I do know one thing. Sometimes, when things feel like they're falling apart, they're actually falling into place." The woman blinked, surprised. Emma smiled. "You never know what's ahead, but while you figure it out, don't forget to appreciate what's still here." The woman let out a small, teary laugh. "I never thought about it that way." Emma reached for her hand and squeezed it. "Someone once told me that every moment is a gift, and I think they were right." Full circle. As the plane landed, Emma helped passengers deboard. The woman from 5B paused before leaving and gave Emma a small, grateful smile. And then 3A stepped forward. "Well done," he said quietly. Emma exhaled. "I get it now." His smile widened. "I know you do." He walked toward the exit, then paused. "You know," he said, glancing back, "I think I'll take another flight soon." Emma smirked. "I'll be here." And this time, when she watched him disappear into the crowd, she didn't feel like he was a mystery anymore. She understood, because now she carried his secret with her.